because I remember when we were in State House with the parliamentarian African members of parliament from 22 countries. They really gave him information, and it was inquiry. Yeah, isn't this thing hormonal? Isn't there hormone, or this or the other? And as I mentioned here, he asked Dr. Wahome. Dr. Wahome came several times and clearly says, well, this thing is a behavior matter. A behavior matter. It is not a genetic matter. It's not a biological matter. It is a behavior matter. Just like stealing, prostitution, lying, murder, all these are behavior matters. And we all struggle. Human beings struggle with all these things. We all struggle with these things every day. Temptation, they fall in that category. It's not like you are born that way. So, unfortunately, the report was adopted as it is. And as we are talking now, that is the status of things. And that report and the bill as amended, according to what that report says, is going to be passed on to His Excellency to sign. So that is the situation. The warnings we gave and all that was not taken. Even with some of the members of parliament who were able to reach before received our information, but nobody did anything. So that is the situation as per now. Over to you, Bishop.
I wanted to understand about the other provisions. There were 4 points that His Excellency raised. Could you just mention each of those for the members?
The first one was that what I've already said, that people should be recognized in homosexuality should, as a condition, should be decriminalized. The other one was about rehabilitation, that there should be a provision for people to be rehabilitated. The other one was amnesty, that there should be a way, the way they give amnesty.
Before you continue, so what was about rehabilitation? What was final agreed on rehabilitation?
Now, yes. Now I need to read that document to give it, rather to give a more informed report on that. So I'm yet to read and to really scrutinize and assess and then give a report. So right now I've not read it. It is just my colleagues who have read it, who we've been working with in this matter, and they are very, very, very concerned. So I can't tell you right now because I'm yet to read it and then be able to give a proper assessment.
Amnesty.
Yeah, amnesty, rehabilitation. Yes, and also there was the issue if a landlord is if people come and they they rent your property and then they do homosexuality there, you as a landlord should not be, because you may not know who they are. Nobody tells you what they are going to do in your premises. Yes, that was the other matter.
About us as religious leaders, when somebody comes and confesses to you and you counsel them, pray for them, the requirement.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yeah. Before it was that you are mandated to report. Yes. Now as I said, I'm sorry. I need to double check on that. I cannot give something conclusive yet. But I think the long and short of it, the bill is going to be passed, and yes, if you commit a homosexual act, the bill is going to get you. But we feel that there are loopholes, and it has opened the door for these people to actually utilize and to gain access and rights and legitimacy, and eventually even decriminalizing the whole homosexuality thing, where even two consenting adults, and things like that will be out. So they've got a foothold, and that foothold always is when you say that, okay, you're gonna, which is really tantamount to recognizing sexual orientation. I think that's the biggest issue. All the other issues may be there.
Has that word sexual orientation, has it been left in?
Yes, it has been left in, because they did not touch that. Yeah, they did not touch that at all. They did not touch that at all, much as we like one of our colleagues contacted the Honorable Mario Musi, because he was one who had guided the parliament during the third reading, because it had been put there for then. Honorable Mario Musi was one who came and clarified, said, no, you people, this thing is not biological, therefore we don't need it there. And so, and so they kind of removed it from where it was supposed to be, but they nevertheless left the definition. They just left it as a definition, and it was there in the bill that His Excellency had. So now, yesterday, since they did not allow any other change apart from what His Excellency said, it is there. It is there. It has been left there. And that is what, yes, it has been left there. Yeah.
In the definition?
Yes, it has been left there.
So it appears in the definition, but not in the text?
Yes. It is in the definition, and the only other place it was appearing in was in defining sex and defining the person who is an intersex. It was also there. And in my recommendation, we had recommended that the definition of sexual orientation should be deleted. And then on the part of the intersex where it is included, I gave a definition that does not contain sexual orientation. And that's one we had proposed should be replaced with. But since they only considered what His Excellency said, so the bill is there intact. And in any case, even to add to the sexual orientation definition, which was just there, kind of hanging, and not anywhere else, and that in itself was good enough for the homosexuals. But now they're adding a clear statement that somebody who is just who just identifies as homosexual or is and does not commit a crime has not committed a crime. So now that addition is there, which even strengthens the position of those who are promoting homosexuality. Yes.
How about now the last question about the rights, in as far as the definition in our constitution is that nobody should be segregated based on sexual that part, based on
sex. At the moment, it is on sex, not on sexual orientation. It is on sex. Somebody is going on sex. But now, by His Excellency allowing that provision, they can now latch on that and go to court and say, well, since His Excellency has recognized that we exist, therefore that must be added. Apart from sex, now must add sexual orientation. So that's that they now have the ground to actually get that legally.
Now, the legal definition in the Constitution is this sex and sexual orientation. How are they handled? Is it somebody segregated based on sex or sexual orientation?
At the moment, our Constitution is only on sex. Somebody is discriminated
on sex, male and
not
female.
Yeah, yes, which is supposed to be male and female, not on sexual orientation. It's not there.
Once we
This
want
is
to
the first
say
time.
sexual orientation, okay.
Yeah. It is not
Okay.
there. Yeah, so now it's the first time that is appearing in our legal books in the history of our nation.
Sexual orientation.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, it opens a can of worms. Yeah.
So we now so that so the constitution, because what I envisage is that what I think is that they are going to go to court. So the matter of contention to them will be nobody should be discriminated based on sex or sexual orientation. So that is the issue. Okay. Titus, come here. Are you asking a question? Okay. No. Titus? Okay.
No, Bishop. I think it was unmuted. Let's take it.
Oh, okay. Praise God. Okay, thank you so much, Stephen. I think, is there anybody who had any question for Stephen? Anything that you needed clarification on this? All of us have been waiting and praying. In case you have any question, comment, just raise it up before we move on.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Bishop. I just wanted to know from maybe anybody could advise, but especially Talanga. After now, the Parliament have okayed the President's report and it's going back to him. Is it a must that nothing can be done anymore? It is only the President now to sign it, or he can again do anything, or it is now done that as long as the Parliament sends it back to him, he has to just sign it like that, and nobody can do anything. What are the options that we still have?
The president still has an option to make a final change. Now, only one more change. He's allowed to make 2 changes. So now, if he has anything to change, he can only make one more change. And after he has made that one more change, that is the last opportunity he has. The bill will come back to Parliament, and the Parliament will decide whether they will accept what the president's second change or not. And if they agree to accept it, then they will accept it and send it back to him. If they decide not to accept it, then they will just go by what they have determined, and they'll give it to him. And if he refuses to sign it, after 30 days, it will automatically become law. So we have one more window right now. If somebody can help prevail on His Excellency to just let him know that, look, Your Excellency, this position is putting the country in a very, very vulnerable position. So that's the only thing right now, to lobby him so that he sees and changes his mind. Otherwise, as per now, with his statement, with what he has said, the homosexuals have now what they can latch on and to go to the court and ask for for full rights as we stand now. So we are in a very, very tricky position. And these people have been doing so much lobbying. I mean, things from US government, European Union, name it. I mean, these guys are not sleeping. They have been day and night putting pressure on His Excellency, pushing pressure on members of Parliament and all that kind of stuff. So it's a big battle for our nation, and that's why I'm really glad prayers are taking place and all that. And for me, my take on this is that it's not over. This is not yet over. This is not yet over, and God is in control. God is in control, and the prayers that we are praying, we know, are not wasted and are not. God knows how He does His own things, and He does these things in such a manner that at the end of the day, it will be clear that it was he who was in control. Because when Moses came to the children of Israel in Egypt, things first got worse before they became better. And the children were like, now you've come, things are even worse. We're not even getting straws. So I believe God is in control of this matter. And God is in control of the destiny of our nation. And this is a big threat to our nation at the moment, just like the days of Esther. This is the threat that we're facing. So we don't know how God is going to deliver us. We don't know how he's going to do it. But to answer your question, yes, His Excellency can still change the situation as per now before he signs. Over to you.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
Bishop.
Yeah.
We remember in times of crisis of COVID, the Lord used you and the interreligious council, wherein the president was able to really hear. Now, in your position, Bishop, we trust now you being the arm of God, the voice of God. We trust that, Bishop, I think when you go and prevail, plus the backing up of our prayers and the population, as Langa was putting it, this parliament is a group of people that are representing us, but I need advice and clarification here. What if the parliament passes or passes or enacts a law and the population are not in favor? What would be the way forward? Yes, you are our leaders, but we are against what you have done. Is it final?
According to our constitution, the parliament represents you. So it's like they have gone around and they have gotten your thoughts. The parliament mandates them to make laws on our behalf because they are representing us. They understood to be representing us, and while they are discussing a law, they're supposed to come and consult you. And in addition to that, you also have access to the committee while that act or bill is still in the committee stage, that Ugandan citizens groups can go and make presentations to the legal committee. Because after that, now, then it goes to the plenary of parliament where the final discussion is done. Before once the bill then is passed, then it goes to the president, who on our behalf, on behalf of the nation now, signs it into law. That's what we have as our constitution. So it is not, where you say that passing a law, which the Uganda, they are representing us in a way. They are not acting on outside our will. The law has made it clear, the constitution, and they act on our behalf. That's what it is. Well, I've picked the key issues. Any other before we continue? In case of any issues that you want to raise, I'll take that particular part Stephen has highlighted, and I'll discuss a little bit about it with the other members of the Council of Presidents. Can you, Stephen, avail us with the approved, the acts that has finally been passed? Is there we can get a copy? The very final one. Is there where we can get it? Soonest?
That final one is being worked on and it is going to be passed on to the president, but I will try and see. I will also get you the report of the committee, and yes, if I can get access to that one, which is going to His Excellency, I'll give it to you. But usually they kind of keep it confidential until it is on his desk. But I'll try my best to see if I can get it so that I can give it to you. And sorry?
I had one time when there was
I'll try and get it.
A controversy between the final copy and the Hansard. Have you had that before? where what was discussed is kind of, there was a team within the legal drafting team, where the answer was saying something else, and then the final act is saying something else.
That is very possible. That's very possible, Honorable. Bishop, especially on matters that are people who have a lot of interest. Because even in our parliament, the other side has their representatives in there. There was a time when I went to make a presentation, this was before COVID, over a matter, I forget what it was, at the time when they said that there was some constitutional review. So we sent there our position to put to really tighten on certain things regarding homosexuality. And so when I went to present there to the committee, we found there was somebody from the American embassy. And so the committee thought that they were part of our team. So I said, okay, Mr. Langa, introduce your team. So I introduced my team. And then there was a white man there, and he said, hey, what about you? I thought they were part of your team. I said, no. They're not part. Then they said that we are from the US Embassy, and we just came here to observe. I said, oh my gosh. I mean, which means that within the parliament machinery, they have their spies, they have their people on their side. So they're able to even tweak documents if somebody is not keenly following. They are very, very capable of doing that. So yeah, so I'll see if I can get you
an key example was the discussion during the Constituent Assembly about the Kadi courts. I checked with each and every person all the Christians who were part, Matembe, Cecily Ogwal. I asked each one of them personally, how did this issue come about when you were discussing this? And they said this thing never came neither in the committee stage, nor even in the plenary. There's nowhere it appeared in the discussion, yet it appears in the Constitution. So, do you remember that?
What happened? Yes, I remember that. Actually, it had come up 3 times, and it was rejected by the Constitutional Assembly 3 times. And then eventually, there were 3 people who did it. I forget their names. But one of them was the doctor did, and they put it in there. Yes.
So it was rejected in the plenary and committee stage? And
yes, 3 times. Yes, it was rejected 3 times, and then it appeared.
And it still appeared in the final document of the Constitution. Yes. Now it can only be removed by another discussion.
That's right, and that was one. And that was one of the things we had wanted to remove, because those are some of the abnormalities in our Constitution. Yes, so it has to be now discussed, and maybe through constitutional review process, it is done, and the Muslims know it. They know it. They know that that thing was there fraudulently, and that's why for 15 years they kept quiet. Nobody said anything. Then it was around, maybe 10 years ago that they began, but you see, this is the Constitution. We need our rights. Even the police should be taught how to keep Sharia-related kind of things. So they can't come for it with force, or rather with the, with the confidence, because they know it was there illegally. So these things do happen, and that's why we need to be very, very keen and to see every document, see every letter, because they mean a lot. And once something is in writing, then the courts will just rule in favor of it. And that's why really documents we need to scrutinize and guard the nation. And like now in this situation where something has happened, which on the surface looks innocent, but which has very serious repercussions. And you see, This is the same way and the same pattern they've done from country to country to country to country, where if we don't learn from history, and I think that somebody needs to really prevail on His Excellency, if you don't learn from history, I mean, history is going to repeat itself. But you see, these guys are so clever and so crafty. I mean, cunning. Satan is very cunning and seducing and so on. He brings things from the point of view of what you want or what you like, and makes you think that, when you do this, things will be okay with you. Things will be okay with you, or things like that. So our leaders need to be helped to see the spiritual implications of some of the political decisions that they make. So we're in a real situation, and I will read all those documents, and if necessary, I'll give a report possibly tomorrow. And if our religious leaders need to know, what kind of things to do and what are the issues, I'll be happy to just help them see it, or write something small that they can see. But they have already written. I wrote a long document on that, which really explains the danger that we are in as a nation, and the tactic that these people have used in other countries, which we are now seeing is reaching our own country. There's nothing new that they've done which we don't know. We've seen it, and we can predict what they're going to do. So that's where we are at the moment, and let God use whoever is in a position to do something or to say something to a decision maker. I believe it is not yet over, and we shouldn't give up, because the way I look at this thing, in the days of Daniel, the law had been passed, which is unreversible. In the days of Esther, the law had been passed, which is unreversible. But you see, our God can reverse anything that man has done. So that's the faith I have, and that's what I'm looking at and see. Just wonder how God's going to do it, but that is His prerogative. For us, we do what we humanly can do. We point out the issues, we point out the facts, we point out the information, and we let God do His work. Over to you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much, Stephen. For those of you who have not been with us in the last few months, we've really made this a major issue of discussion, but also of prayer. And we've been looking at what is at stake in our country at the moment. As you already know, that we have become the center of attraction globally. All the eyes are watching Uganda, and to see what we decide, to see what we do, to see what happens with our parliament, with our president, with the decision made. Then the rest of the African countries, we had the members of parliament, as Stephen has just mentioned, and it was a 3-day discussion. And fortunately, they were able to meet His Excellency, the President. And in summary, they were saying all our countries are concerned about this, but they don't have the stamina to take a stand. If Uganda could take a stand, then the rest of our leaders, presidents and parliaments could borrow relief from here. And therefore, that's why this matter is now a key issue. And because other nations around us, East Africa and the rest of Africa, is really watching us closely to see what we do and how we do it, so that they may follow suit. But also the others on the other side, negatively, they are also watching us to see what we do, what we decide, because after we decide, they have made up their decision to use everything possible, everything in their power to penalize whatever decision that we take. Now, for us, we've been looking at the nation. We have been looking at in the previous discussions. We've been looking at this matter, and I want to again go back to it. Allow me to share this this issue. Let me see what this threat, the understanding that threat of homosexuality. How do we understand? How do we interpret what is going on? We're looking at the family. God is for governments. First of all, we saw that God, being a person, He has created individuals. Being a father, He has created family. Being king, He has created government, and priest, He has created religion. These are very basic in every society. Every society of men has these four governments. Every individual, every individual is important. What homosexuality is going at the core of destroying these these four. Because, for example, in the West, they're saying you can abort anytime you want, because that person in the womb is not yet a person, so you can abort. So for us, from the biblical perspective, he's a person by conception. That the individual starts by conception. David mentions that I was conceived in mother. I was shaped in iniquity in my mother's womb. John the Baptist and Jesus first met in their mother's womb, Elizabeth and Mary, and they could still recognize each other. And John the Baptist was filled with the Holy Spirit in his mother's womb. So we look at it from the biblical perspective and say God recognizes an individual from their mother's womb. And every individual is important because they are created in the image of God. The individual is important because everything that God does, it starts with an individual. And then we saw the family, the importance of the family, which the West is saying, no, the individual is not sacred and the family is not sacred. Sacred means it's something that God has declared holy and important. Family, they don't think it's important. They say family was defined by man. A certain group of individuals felt we should not continue sleeping around and producing children irresponsibly. So they defined the one man and one woman. After all, we had been monkeys. Monkeys don't marry. Monkeys only mate. We were mating like other apes. So a certain group of people defined the marriage. Why should we be bound by the wisdom of that generation? We are now modern and civilized. Why shouldn't we be allowed to redefine it the way we want? Man and man, woman and woman, man and woman, man and beast. So that's what is happening, going at the core of these very, very basic institutions of society. You find these for everywhere you go, even people who have never known God. These are basic to society, to survival. And then they're saying, no, nation is man-made also. A nation is not anything that we should really respect. We shouldn't even be patriotic because these nations are man-made. And yet the Bible clearly shows us that God created nations from this Genesis chapter 9, verse 6, when he delegated human beings to protect others, he delegated them to form the institution of government. Genesis chapter 9, verse 6, after the flood. From now, if anybody sheds the blood of another, by men, his blood shall be shed. That's where human governments start, initiated by God himself, because before that, he was the policeman. Cain, where is your brother? So God himself had to do that. After the flood, it's not God who is going to come to Cain. It's people who are going to come and demand accountability of others, protection of others. And then because he created us in his own image, we have a part in us called the spirit. Different from animals, we have spirits. Animals don't have spirits. That's why the fourth one, as priest, God created religion, meaning we worship. We can worship. Animals can't worship the way we do. we worship by our spirits. Jesus said the time is coming and now is when true worshipers will worship God in spirit and in truth. So we worship in spirit and in truth because we have the image of God in us. We have a spirit. So this is what the enemy is going against the very core, because all these are sacred. They are God's gifts to mankind. Each must be protected. The individual must be protected. The family must be protected. The church was created by God. Jesus said, I'll build my church, Matthew 16:18. And then the nation. He destroys empire in Genesis 11 in order to release the nations in chapter 10. I repeat that. Empire is a pagan idea. Nation is the moral idea, is God's idea. People have to be in nations. In a nation, you are a citizen with the rights, with obligations, with responsibilities, with duties, but you have rights, you have opportunities in a nation. Because you are made in the image of God, you have rights, you have choices to make for yourself. That is in the nation. That's totally different when you are in an empire. In an empire, you are subject. You pay taxes, you are not even consulted how they should be used. When we were still under the British colonial masters, it was the Queen who visited us and said, I'll give you Mulago and Owen falls down. You don't, they force you to produce coffee with the Chiboko being beaten, and you have to do that and obey the colonial masters. That is empire. In an empire, we are just a subject. That money can be used for the statue of the emperor. It can be used for, emperor's glory, for whichever way, and you have no right to ask. That's what caused the American Revolution in 1774. When they said we cannot tax without representation, they refused. They said we Americans should be involved in the decision made about our taxes. They said, no, you are just a colony. London refused, and the war started ending in 1776. So that was the war. The war was, we a nation, 13 colonies, but they agreed we should form a nation. The Dutch had to fight the Spanish for 80 years to be free. The Dutch, Holland was under the Spanish Empire. And when the Reformation fires were blazing in Europe, they came to this issue of nation. They understood we're a nation. Why should we be ruled by the Roman Empire, by the Spanish? We should be free. So that fighting went on, and Holland became the first nation in Europe, and Switzerland, the modern definition in 1648 at the Treaty of Westphalia, starting the present idea of nations. The battle from Satan's side is that I want people in empires. God wants people in nations. In nations, the image of God is respected. In the empire, it is not. In an empire, you are subject. In a nation, you are a citizen. In a country, you're just an inhabitant. Now, I'm using those definitions to make it clear from the biblical perspective what God looks at and what is at stake at the moment. And what the devil is doing is to return us back to Babylon. Babylon appears in Genesis 11. It will appear again in the end times, because the empire issue is going to be one of the final battles. In the book of Revelation, the globalists are working to undermine all national sovereignties so that we go back to one world government, one world religion, one world currency, one world police, one word. So it is the final battle. And we see that battle fought in the book of, in the chapter 17 and 18, when Babylon comes back and Babylon is finally judged. Along the way, as God has been working, he was restoring that issue of nation. So It's not a minor thing. It's a major thing at the moment. And these institutions, each is important. God gave you as an individual a right to be who you are. You choose your husband, you choose your job, you choose your career. Anybody who undermines that is undermining the very image of God. So you are responsible to respect God and his creation. You have a right to choose to obey God or reject him. You have that right. You see, God does not take away our rights, but he tells us what is right. What is right is this, but he gives you a decision to make. If you don't make those decisions, then you are responsible. You're going to be accountable. The difference is that he allows you to make those choices. That's a very interesting thing. God has power to shout, and the whole earth will hear, and all of them would obey. It can even cause China and Russia in 1 minute to become born again, because he can shout and shake the whole earth from heaven and cause all of them by force to tell them, I'm here, all of you. Why doesn't he do that? Because that's not his way. He gives liberty to human individualism. Even these people who are fighting God, he has given them a choice. They have a choice to make, so that in the end, when he's making the final judgment, he's a just God. He makes sure you have your rights. You make the choice, but then you are responsible for the choices you make. So that is the individual, being God, exercising dominion. The family, government, what is this responsibility? To provide for its members, to prepare its members, to protect its members. That is what we are responsible for. As fathers, as parents, we have this responsibility of providing, preparing or nurturing, and then protecting. Then about church, edify saints, educate saints, evangelize sinners. This is the church responsibility. These are basic issues. And then there is the economic government. The first is management, which is the secular word, but the biblical word is stewardship. It's the same thing. We steward the earth. God gave the earth to us to steward. So that's the word management. And then markets and money. And finally, the civil government is to protect citizens, promote righteousness and the welfare of society, and then punish every errant behavior or wickedness. So these 5 basic governments are so key. And what is at stake now is the global war against what God has ordained and what man has ordained. And we're looking at Genesis chapter 6, Genesis chapter 6 and Genesis chapter 19 bring out a very important issue. The war that we are fighting now is a war where the people have decided to go against the order of nature. The first fight starts when God in heaven decides to create human beings in his own image. Lucifer and his angels reject that. They said, why do you choose them? These human beings, what are they? Who is man that you visit him? Who is man that you give him a right to rule? You see, when God made his idea clear that he was going to create human beings much lower than angels, yet they are going to be created in his image, that's what created an uproar amongst these angels led by Lucifer, whole department rejecting the idea. God was going to create us in his image with 4 things that are unique and different from angels. In God's image, therefore we will be sons, therefore we will be heirs, and therefore we will rule. 4 things. Created in his image. Number 2, therefore we'll be sons. Number 3, heirs. Number 4, rulers. Angels are none of those 4. They're not created in God's image. They're not sons, they're servants, ministering spirits which are sent to minister for us who are heirs of salvation, because for them they are not heirs. And therefore we would rule, and for them they're not going to rule. They'll continue to be servants. This is the core of the real fight, because after man is created on earth, and the devil decides to deceive man, and man falls, says Satan is so happy, says, you see, those are the people you created in your image. You see that? You have defected to my side. God declares that day in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, that although you've caused this man to sin against me, I'll use the seed of the woman to crush, to destroy your kingdom. And Satan, hearing that, he said, oh, is that the case? I'm going to fight the seed of the woman. So from that moment, Adam produces Cain and Abel. The battle starts. Cain kills Abel. When the people become many, the fallen angels, some of these fallen angels came and cohabited with the daughters of men, producing giants. These giants were, they're not human, they were huge. So you can look at these, these pictures here. These were very, very huge people. There were giants in those days, the Bible says, and also afterwards. It was during Noah's day, and also during Moses' day when they were entering the promised land. These were unusual people. When Moses sent spies, they came back and said, we were like grasshoppers. So these are a product of these fallen angels and human beings. And they were, in the days of Noah, they were rounded up and totally, and these fallen angels who did that, they were rounded up and thrown in a place called Tartarus. And then the flood came and destroyed the rest of the giants who had been produced. The fallen angels don't die by water. So they were rounded up. The Bible tells us they were rounded up and thrown into Tartarus. The book of Jude and the First Peter, Second Peter tells us what happened. In 2 Peter 2:4, it says, for if God did not spare those angels who sinned, but cast them to Tartarus, the original word is Tartarus, and delivered them into chains of darkness, they are being reserved for the final judgment. Then he brought the flood on the world of the ungodly. So he presents that as God's, acts of judgment. And then he says, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them to destruction, making them an example to those who afterwards would live ungodly. So he's presenting these two generations. One is the generation of Noah, another one is the generation of Sodom and Gomorrah. These two are always brought side by side. Why are they brought side by side? Because in both generations, there is unnatural sex. In Genesis 6, in Noah's day, angels cohabiting with men, producing giants. God destroyed them by water and flood. How about in the time of Moses? Because it says here, in those days and also afterwards, which is the afterwards, the time of Moses. When he was coming into the promised land, God said, destroy them all. Don't spare them, because they were not pure human beings. These were not human beings. Destroy them all. Satan is fighting the seed of the woman, and so destroy them all. Now, in Jude, he repeats that same thing. The angels who did not keep their proper domain. This is not the totality of all the angels that rebelled with Lucifer. This is a group of angels who sinned during Noah's day, who did not keep their domain, proper domain of celestial beings, but left their own abode and cohabited with human beings. He has reserved in everlasting chain. That is in Tartarus. They are waiting for the final judgment. But for them, for those angels, they were not allowed to stay. We have other angels, fallen angels, we fight against. Paul says they are all over the place. They are at large. They are in the heavenly places, principalities and power. But these ones were not even allowed to continue to remain. They were rounded up and thrown into Tartarus, and they are waiting for the final judgment, just like all the others. But the others are at large. The fallen angels, rebellious angels, they're at large, but these ones were rounded up. And so, again, in Jude, they are brought side by side. Again, in Noah's day, and then Sodom and Gomorrah. It tells us that the cities around them in a similar manner, which is the similar manner, having given themselves over to sexual immorality and going after strange flesh. Strange flesh means unnatural sex. They are set as an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal life. Likewise, also, this dreamer defiled the flesh. So the issue here is that for the last days, these are the two examples that God is saying to the human race. Look at Noah's day, look at Sodom and Gomorrah. I showed you already my estimate about these issues. I've already made it clear, so you have no excuse. And Jesus also said it. He says, as it was in the days of Noah, and as it was in the days of Lot. Luke 17:26. He clearly brings those two again side by side. Luke 17, verse 26, the days of Noah, and then the days of Lot. Because in those two, there was a mass, you call it global, or for the two cities, it was mainly the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. But in Noah's day, it was a global issue. This homosexuality thing is going to become a global issue continually. And then it will result into what I've just mentioned in the other four institutions: individual, family, church or religion, and then state. That is the final goal. And the devil is out to fight the purposes of God. And for us Christians, it has to be clear. So that's why this issue becomes an issue, a major issue for us for consideration, because as a nation, we're taking a stand for righteousness, and we believe the Lord will stand for us. And he has made it clear that he's going to always fight for the people who stand for righteousness. God hates all these forms. There are 17 forms of sexual deviations. But the ones I've put in red before God are in a class of their own, because they are going against nature. Lesbianism, homosexuality, bestiality, sex with demons. That's why those are in a class of their own. Our time is done today, and before I conclude, I want to thank you again for the way you've supported us, and you're still supporting us. We are now in. Today will be Nebi. For me, I've slept in Pakwachi. My colleagues have slept in Arua, and we're meeting this morning in Nebi to continue. So we need your prayers. We had a powerful meeting in